Immersion. It's one of, if not the key element, we sim racers chase when building our setups, often trumping both ergonomics and even performance. Chasing this particular dragon can give you a serious case of gear acquisition syndrome, endlessly upgrading all of your input devices, moving to bigger and more screens, and buying ever more extravagant and expensive button boxes, haptic engines, and other various doohickeys and doodads. But what if there's a simpler and, more importantly, cheaper first step that we're all missing? This might be stating the obvious, but a big difference between a car and a room is size. In order to truly feel like you're inside of a car, you need enclosure. And an easy way to add a bucket load of that is the roof. This is not the first thing I did, of course, with this particular setup boasting expensive gear and doohickeys and doodads aplenty. However, since adding a rudimentary roof, I can attest that my feeling of presence in the virtual worlds through which I hoon my pretend race cars has increased dramatically. It works, but it's not pretty. Leftover cardboard, folded into tubes, a loosely hanging square of noise-canceling foam, all held together with humble clothespins. The entire thing attached to the rig with the surgical precision of string. If left alone, this thing would probably last me a decade, but it does lack a couple of features that I like in my sim rig. Presentable looks and versatility. So I'm building a new one. But from what, I hear you ask? PVC pipes. A sturdy and lightweight frame is key, especially since the entire thing will be attached to the monitor mount. But you can't build this sort of project indoors. For that, we must go to the shed. The core concept is simple. Use PVC pipes and angle adapters to construct the frame. First, the pipes need to be cut to length and test fit together. If the dimensions and rigidity are good, the entire assembly will be glued together. It's cutting time. It doesn't have to be straight, but it does have to be of equal length. Okay, so right now we have everything we need to test assemble the first part of the frame and see if it fits together the way I imagined. She ain't pretty, but she is built. 45-degree angles, super easy to understand. In two-dimensional space, in three-dimensional space, things get weird really fast. Like, how many 45-degree angles and at what three-dimensional angle to each other do you need to come from a vertical to a horizontal line? I don't know, and I can't do the math behind it either. What I can do is test shit out. Okay, test fit number 1. Well, after looking at it, I was a bit concerned about the overall height. Visually, this is a problem, but structurally, it's fine. I think that realistically the 60 will be the move. But let's replace this with a 45 and see where that gets us. Actually, this works really well. So against all odds, my initial assumptions were actually quite on point. Excellent. Excellent. So because PVC pipes are directional, with a female end on one end and a male connector on the other, it's important to position them in the correct orientation before cutting them, so I don't accidentally cut off the wrong end. Okay, so for the center part of the frame, we must produce 2 of these, starting at 135 centimeters a piece, and then we'll be cutting them down to size if it turns out that that measurement is a bit over ambitious. She's blocked out at least. I'm surprisingly satisfied with the result, gotta be honest. We didn't have a very, very strong plan going into this, but it is actually quite close to my expectations. The best of them. Excellent. Okay. Time to try this on. I will try to very carefully maneuver it above its final resting area. All right, so the idea is the entire thing can lift up anyway and is attached to the monitor mount with a set of M8 bolts. All right, so that is rudimentarily attached. I will need to examine the shape from the outside, but from back here, I think the coverage is excellent. However, it does come very, very close to the walls. Surprisingly easy to handle. I'm happy with that. So now it's the adjustments phase. The entire thing needs shortening by about 14 centimeters, give or take. And then we're ready for final assembly and fixing the thing together. All right, let's cut. So for the sake of the look of the finished product, as well as a little bit of weight savings, all of the collars on the ends will be cut off, and then the final thing will be permanently fixed together with some screws. After so much more work than I was prepared for, it is haphazardly assembled, held together with screws instead of glue, as was originally planned due to my inability to source PVC cement, but with the collars cut off, she is noticeably lighter and also quite sturdy. I'm very, very happy with the result. So the next step is paint. All right, we're back at the rig for the final test fit before painting. So there's the provisional location. That will be tightened later, and dropping it into position. Wonderful. Much less sag, so the mounting can be corrected a bit, but as far as the frame goes, what more could you possibly want? Excellent coverage, excellent rigidity, and I am very, very happy. So I guess I have to explain a few things. Last time I said, next thing, paint. And frankly, we're not quite ready for paint just yet. Now, this thing has been hanging on the rig for the past couple of weeks, and its structural rigidity seems pretty good. I'm happy with the way things are held together, but I don't think it's ready for paint just yet. Instead, what we're going to do first is do the cover, so the roof part itself, if you will. For that, I've chosen a couple of blocks of styrofoam that we're going to cut to size and then attach to the frame. Well, first with zip ties, and then we'll see if that's good enough. Okay, so the styrofoam has been cut to shape. It's currently roughly in position and being held together with duct tape, which isn't ideal, but for what I needed to do right now is good enough. So the next step is I've prepared a couple of cardboard strips that will be placed over the joints, because my fear is that the zip ties that will be used to hold this in place initially would cut through the styrofoam. I don't want that to happen, and the hope is that the cardboard will prevent that. But we're about to see whether or not that's actually the case. And that's rudimentary assembly of the roof itself complete. The cardboard did its job fine. We didn't cut through any styrofoam. Visually, it's not quite there yet, but rigidity-wise and stability-wise, it's really coming along. And now, paint. So, the roof has been painted and left overnight to dry. I've gone for a dark black, cold carbon black to make sure that the white of the styrofoam doesn't show through any sort of upholstery that I end up going for. Seeing as this is the structural element mostly completed, I think it's time for another test fit. I like this. The slick black color, the levitating nature of it. Visually, even from the outside, it looks really nice. Of course, the main question is, what does it feel like to sit underneath it? Oh, this is nice. There's a good feeling of enclosure. There's very little light leaking, even though we haven't added any sort of curtain behind the monitor yet. I think this is pretty much as dark as you'd want it. There are a couple of positioning adjustments I'd like to make, perhaps bring it lower to the screen, but the fact that we have some room above it is very good, because extra is always good. Too little is almost always bad. So what have we accomplished here? Well, not much objectively. The rig had a roof, and now it has a roof. But the relative success of this quick and easy build should convince you that some sort of canopy is a key element of your racing setup if what you're chasing is indeed immersion. Of course, we're not quite done yet. As you may have noticed, this roof is not doing a particularly good job of replicating a racing car roll cage. The reason for that is simple. It's not supposed to. What really draws me to sim racing is a casual Sunday drive with friends in street cars. And street cars don't have roll cages. They have upholstery. Join us next time when this lovely canopy meets some fabric.